are in chapter 52, and we are discussing something which highlights how enormously important Torah is. Because we learned last week that Torah is actually the filter through which Shechina, through which creation can happen. So let me remind you of the scoop briefly, and then we'll read it inside. We did not get to read it because it took a long time explaining. But of course, it's been a week, so who remembers, right? So we are talking about how does God constrict himself enough for creation? And we first learned about it in ourselves, and we said in our soul is completely throughout our entire body, equally throughout our entire body, way too intense for the body to perceive it. Then the soul energy minimizes to be able to be perceived by the brain, and then it minimizes further to extend itself to the entire body. Understanding our body is a lot easier than understanding God and creation because God's obviously a lot bigger than the soul in our body. So now let's move to creation. Again, just like in our body, which is of course mirroring how God does it. God's intensity is in all of creation, equally all of creation, and way too big and intense for creation to handle. Then this energy gets minimized into the, so to speak, brain element, which is the will and wisdom, the ratzon, the will, the lower dimension of the crown of Keser, and the chachma, bina, and das, the primordial wisdom, understanding, and connectivity, the intellect of God, so to speak. And there, God makes himself small enough to be experienced in these highest levels. But that's not for the rest of creation. God, as he's revealed in the will and wisdom, the rest of creation can't read that at all. So then God constricts further, and this infinity of God invests itself in the lowest of the 10 dimensions, in the dimension we call Malchus, sovereignty. And we said there are many names for this dimension because obviously it's a critical dimension. From this energy creation happens. So this is called the worlds of revelation. This is called the mother. This is called the queen. This is called Shechina, the resting of the divine presence. Because the Ein Sof, the infinity of God, is constricted to be within Malchus, from which, within sovereignty, from which now the energy flows and creations happens, and there's souls, and there's angels, and there's chambers, and all the activity of creation is going on from the energy of Shechina, God, the infinity of God, invested in Malchus. This is the Shechina, this is the source, this is why she's the mother, this is why she's the queen, this is why she's a world of revelation. Now this energy can be revealed, now creation can benefit, now creation can be. Then we said, wait a minute, if this energy, sovereignty of the world of Atzilus, Shechina, the queen, the mother, the worlds of revelation is so intense, how can she create? How would creation not get burnt up by her fire? The last thing we actually read inside was comparing the creation, the godliness that flows from Shechina, that flows from Malchus of Atzilus, from sovereignty of the world of being, to the rays of the sun. So if we dissect that metaphor a little, we have the Malchus, the sovereignty of Atzilus, the Shechina, that's the sun. And we have the energy which flows from her to create, that's the rays of the sun. Very simple and obvious. So what do I need a muscle for? What is that parable doing for me? What is that helping me? Because I understand that a ray is a tremendous minimization of the sun. It's only a glow, it's only a shine, it's a ray. The ray, if I would go back, like from our world to the sun itself, that's 92 million miles. If I would go back from planet Earth 92 million miles to the sun, I wouldn't see the rays at all. In our world, the rays give us light, they give us heat, energy, warmth. They're super significant. There's how life can flourish on planet Earth. We need everything the rays give us. But if we trace those rays back 92 million miles to the sun, they don't exist at all. The rays cannot exist by the sun. The sun's too powerful for them. Only when they're a distance from the sun can the rays have presence, can the rays be. So if the energy of creation is flowing from Malchus of Atzilus, from sovereignty of the world of being, from the Shechina, and she's the source of that energy, she's the sun, how can creation be? How can she give life when she would overwhelm and completely obliterate anything she's trying to give life to? This is a great question. So we need something that can be the filter, that can enable the rays to flow from sovereignty, from Malchus of Atzilus, from Shechina, and this filter can obscure enough that creation can handle it. But we have a problem. What in the world could be the filter? We said the filter can't be anything of creation, because by definition, nothing of creation can handle the sun. So nothing of creation can be the filter. It would like crumble, it would shrivel, it would burn up the first second we tried to use it. So we need something higher than creation. Only something higher than creation could be a filter for Shechina, for Malchus of Atzilus, for the infinity of God as it's invested in sovereignty of the world of being, the Shechina, and creation can be through the medium of the filter. What's that filter? What's higher than creation that could be the filter for creation? Well, what we already said. God himself, as he's invested in his will and wisdom in Torah and her commandments. The will of God is the will of the commandments. The wisdom of God is the wisdom of Torah expressing those commandments. So we said already initially in the beginning of this chapter that the infinity of God, the first expression of the infinity of God is in his will and wisdom in Torah and mitzvahs, because Torah and mitzvahs are the expression of his will and wisdom. You want to know God's will and wisdom? Open up Torah. We know God's will and wisdom. We're privy to it. It's in Torah. All of Torah is expressing the will and wisdom of God. So the first primordial expression of God's infinity that could be read was in his will and wisdom as it's expressed in Torah mitzvahs. But that was way too intense for creation. That can't create. That's way beyond creation. So then the infinity of God had to come into the lowest of the 10 dimensions, Malchus, sovereignty, where, it's the lowest. It has a little more readability by creation. Will and wisdom are part of what we call Alma Disgasia, the concealments. Can't read that at all. On the level of Shechina, of Malchus, of sovereignty of the world of being, that's Alma Disgalia. That's revelation. That's for creation to be. So clearly, the will and wisdom and Torah mitzvos is far higher than Shechina, is far higher than Malchus of Atzilus and sovereignty of the world of being. So she could definitely be the filter and not get burnt up by that energy. She's much greater than that energy. But then we said, wait a minute. If God's will and wisdom, as it's expressed in Torah mitzvahs, is so much greater than sovereignty, than Malchus of Atzilus, sovereignty of the world of being, will is beyond the 10, and wisdom is the highest of the 10, and sovereignty is the 10th. Way beyond. So if creation can't handle the 10th level, if creation can't handle Malchus of Atzilus, sovereignty of the world of being, that's way too intense. That's the sun itself. It will burn up creation. How in the world is this filter helping? This filter is way stronger. Well, it has to be stronger, because if it wasn't stronger, it would burn up too. Fine, it has to be stronger. But then what's it helping? It's only stronger. It's intently stronger. It's the highest level. We went from, if you remember the parable of the palace, we went from the top of the floor and almost the roof beyond the palace, right? Keser, the crown beyond the 10, all the way down to the bottom floor. And that was too strong. So now we're protecting ourselves by the top floor and the roof above. How is that protection? Because Torah, the expression of God's will and wisdom, that highest level beyond anything, descends. It descends world after world after world. There's Torah and Atzilus. And then it descends. And the next world is called Bria, the world of creation. There's Torah in the world of Bria. And then it descends. The next world is called Yetzirah, the world of formation. There's Torah in the world of formation. And then it descends. The next world is the world of Asiyah, the world of descent. There's Torah in the world of Asiyah, in the world of descent. And then it descends. It descends to our physical reality, what we call Asiyah Gashmis, the physical manifestation of the world of descent. And Torah descends to here as well. How do we know Torah descends to here? Because if we read Torah, it's talking about our world. Very interesting. The Bavitcher Rebbe was once asked, could there be life on other planets? And he responded, maybe not intelligent life, but there can't be any intelligent. Why? He said, because life without Torah, life without serving God has no purpose. God doesn't do something for no purpose. So the only purpose of life is to connect to God, is to serve God. It's for Torah, to serve God. Learn Torah, do mitzvahs. But the Torah of our world would have no relationship to beings on another planet because the Torah is very much designed for our world. We talk about the matters of our world. So on a different planet, they're not going to have oxen and they're not going to have donkeys and they're not going to have wool and they're not going to have linen. The matter of Torah wouldn't work there. So could they have a different Torah that works for them? No. God said there's only one Torah and I'm not giving a second one. There's no two Matan Torahs. God doesn't give two Torahs. There's only one Torah. And that Torah only works in this world. And therefore, the Rebbe says, there can't be intelligent life. Because if there's life and there's no service of God, that's not life. So the Torah, which is on Atzilus and on Bria and on Yetzirah and on Asiya and all these four spiritual realities of being, of creation, of formation, of descent, works on our world, talks about our world. We understand it. And then it's understood more deeply and differently on each of the four spiritual worlds, but it's all the same Torah. So since Torah descends to each of these levels, it can work with creation on each level and not blow it up, not be too intense for it, not cause it to explode and self-destruct. So Torah on one hand is way higher than sovereignty of the world of being, than Malchus of Atzilus. So it can be the filter and not be harmed, be blown up by Malchus of Atzilus. And at the same time, this Torah descended to each level of reality. So it has a relationship to each level of reality. So each level of reality can handle it. There's a Torah for Atzilus, there's a Torah for Bria, there's a Torah for Yetzirah and Asiya, and this physical manifestation of Asiya. So every level of creation relates to that Torah, and through it, the filter works. More powerful than Shechina, and relatable to that level of reality. And that's how the energy of God can create. Almost as if you could envision this, no board, but if we can visually try to envision this, we have the infinity of God piercing through Malchus of Atzilus, sovereignty of the world of being, the 10th and lowest level of the highest world. And then there's a filter around it. The Torah, the will and wisdom of God in Ratzon and Chachma and Bina and Das, in the will and intellectual levels of Atzilus. And then the energy pierces through that. And then two more things happen that we're going to read about. And then creation takes place. We are on page Ayin Gimel, top line, second word. Of Hashchina Atzma, we just read inside that the Shechina, God's presence, as it's invested in sovereignty in the world of being, in Malchus of Atzilus, is like the sun. Well, by the sun, the rays don't exist. So how can this sun be the source of and the revelation of the infinity of God and not burn up whatever she's trying to create? Of Hashchina Atzma, but the Shechina herself, this investment of God in Malchus of Atzilus and sovereignty in the world of being. She Reishis Hagila Ve'ikro. She is the first revelation and the primary revelation of the infinity of God. This is called Reishis Hisgalus or Ein Sof, the beginning of the revelation of the infinity of God. We said, wait a minute, wasn't God revealed in the will and wisdom in Torah? Yeah, but we said there, that's not considered an outward bound revelation, meaning the first level of God being revealed that something can absorb, can read, can gain, can benefit. Yes, that's in the will and levels of wisdoms of God. The Ratzon, which is the lower dimension of Keser, of the crown, and Chachma Bina Das, that primordial wisdom, understanding, connectivity. There, God was for the first time revealed and absorbed by those levels, but not by any creation. No creation could read that high. And then the infinity of God descends all the way down, 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 down to the lowest level of that first world, to Malchus, to the sovereignty of the world of being. And now there's supposed to be creation. But we got a problem. Because we're talking about the infinity of God as it's extending through sovereignty of the world of being, and this is way too intense. No creation could happen. This is getting your light directly from the sun, and that would burn anything up. There are no rays by the sun. Creation cannot be in the presence of the infinity of God as it's invested in Malchus of Atzilus. She, Malchus of Atzilus herself, this level is the source of life. So again, you're directly getting from your source. She's going to be within any aspect of creation. If it's a soul, if it's an angel, if it's a chamber, she is the energy. So this isn't going to work. She's too powerful. She's the sun. The sun can't directly. We need the sun 92 safe million miles away from us. Then we can benefit from the sun. How could Shekhinah herself be the source and directly cause creation? It won't work. It won't exist. Because all life, all vitality, all creation is flowing from her like the rays from the sun. So this is an impossible situation. Creation cannot receive from the sun directly. Imagine if the sun wasn't 92 million miles away. Imagine if it was a mere 1,000,000 miles away. Well, there would be no planet Earth, that's for sure. We wouldn't be able to survive. So, from Shekhinah herself, the Ein Sof, the infinity of God within Malchus Batzilus, is directly be creation? There's not going to be any creation. That's impossible. It's impossible for creation to receive this direct light of Shekhinah, the infinity of God, and survive. That this infinity of God would directly be invested in them, literally? Like, no way, not going to happen. There has to be a filter. There has to be a garment that's going to obscure the light enough for them, for creation, to be and handle it. That they are not totally nullified out of their existence and their source. They are in their source. Shekhinah, Malchus Batzilus, is directly creating something. Malchus Batzilus is directly relating to something. That something isn't going to exist. That something can't handle it. Like we see it practically. The light of the sun is totally nullified on planet sun. There are no rays on planet sun. The sun's too bright for any rays. There's no creation by the infinity of God within Malchus Batzilus. No way. It's way too intense. Nothing could be. It can't create. It's too powerful to create. You need it to be that powerful to create, but it's too powerful to create. You're stuck. On planet sun, you don't see any rays. You only see the sun. So this is an impossibility. What's going on? So now, as we said, we have a problem. Because the Shekhinah, Malchus Batzilus, now contains the infinity of God, the Ein Sof, the infinity of God, constricted itself to be within Malchus Batzilus, and wants creation to happen from this point. But that's impossible, because it's way too powerful. So we need a garment. But we said, what could possibly be the garment? Anything of creation can't be the garment, because the whole point is creation can't handle this intensity. So we need something more intense than the Ein Sof invested in Malchus Batzilus. What could be more intense than the Ein Sof invested in Malchus Batzilus? I'll see read that again. So what is this garment that's going to successfully conceal and engarb and not be nullified out of its existence by its close proximity to Shekhinah? This is God's will, God's chachma, etc., meaning also bina, also das, as we learned in the beginning of the chapter, the infinity of God first, before it went to Malchus Batzilus, before it went to sovereignty in the world of being, before that it went to the top of the world of being. Again, remember our palace, 10 floors. The bottom floor, Malchus Batzilus, sovereignty of the world of being. The top floor, chachma, the seminal wisdom of the world of being. And then the bina, the understanding of the world of being. And then the das, the connectivity of the world of being. And higher than all those floors is like the roof on top of the palace, is the kesser, is the crown, and that's the will. So the will, which is even above the palace, and then seminal wisdom, understanding, connectivity, ratzon, chachma, bina, das, that was first the expression of the infinity of God. And then the infinity of God went all the way down to the bottom. So that will and levels of wisdom, they are powerful enough to handle Shekhinah. They're far more powerful than Shekhinah. She's the 10th level. They're the top and 1, 2, and 3. They can be the filter. They are way more powerful because the filter can't be from creation. Nothing of creation can survive. That's the whole problem. So what's higher than creation? The will and wisdom as it's invested in Torah. Torah is the source of creation. Our sages say, Istakal baraisu bara alma. God looked in Torah and created the world. So here we are, just to understand for a second what we're talking about, because it is unbelievable what we're saying here. It's unbelievable. We, right now, all of us on this class, are learning Torah. We are learning Torah. We are discussing concepts. This is a book of Torah. This is Tanya. We are discussing deep Hasidic ideas. We are learning Torah. We are investing our minds in the source of creation. This preceded creation. Torah precedes creation. All of creation is from Torah. And of course, you knew that before you started learning chapter 42 of Tanya. What you now know is not only does Torah precede creation, not only is Torah higher than creation, not only is Torah the source of creation, Torah is actually the filter through which creation can be. Because that energy of the infinity of God that's invested in Malchus, in Avatzilus, in the lowest level of that first world, can't create. It's too powerful to create. So we take something far more powerful. We take Torah, we take the will and wisdom of God, and that's the filter through which this energy of the infinity of God, as it's in Malchus, can now create. Not 92 million miles of distance, but the intense filter of Torah. Such a powerful filter, because Shechina, Malchus of Atzilus, is the energy of creation. Torah is the energy of God. So this synergy of the energy of God, Torah, and the energy of creation, the infinity of God as it's invested in Malchus of Atzilus, from that creation happens. So just imagine, and we touched on this on a simpler level when we learned chapter 35 of Tanya, and actually before that as well. Every time we learn Torah, we are like cranking up the energy of existence. This is the energy of existence. And every time as we learn it, we're sort of like letting it flow, letting it flow. So here's God, in his infinity, invested in Malchus of Atzilus, the power of creation. Can't create, too powerful to create. And here comes the filter. And that filter is called Torah. The power of God, Torah, filtering the power of creation. The infinity of God is invested in Malchus of Atzilus. And now the light can flow and creation is happening. That's what Torah is. And we can and do learn Torah. So we are one, because when we learn Torah, as we learned, I'm trying to remember which Tanya I learned, I believe in chapter 24 of Tanya, and several times since, when we learn Torah, we are one with Torah. We are one with the will and wisdom of God. We are one with God, because God is one with his Torah. God is one with himself, with his will and wisdom, with Torah. And we're one with that will and wisdom, with God, with Torah, with the source of all worlds. We're one with the source of world. Like sometimes, I at least, get bogged down by world. I get stuck by, the little stuff world throws at me. Making airline tickets and things like that, right? Making an airline ticket, that's a very tiny detail of world. When I learn Torah, I'm one with the source of world. And I'm opening that energy up to flow and vivify all worlds as I learn Torah. So this is an incredibly powerful and incredibly practical concept that the Rebbe is sharing now with us. It's not just theology. It's not just this abstract, construct of, there's the infinity of God, and it goes into this level, and it goes into this level, and this level needs a filter, which is this level, like construction here, This is reality, because we are one with that Torah every time we learn. We are one with the will and wisdom of God. We are one with God. We are one with the source that is a source of creation. And as we now understand, that enables creation to be. That's the filter that allows the energy of creation to flow. And as we are one, as we learn that Torah, it flows through all the worlds, and now more and more vitality, because it's the filter of that vitality. Now more and more God vitality of creation can flow through the worlds because of the Torah we're learning. That's its power. Okay, so continuing inside. So we're saying this garment has to be much more powerful than Malchus, otherwise it won't exist. And of course, at the same time, somehow has to be absorbable by creation. So that's God's will and wisdom on the levels of Chachma, Bina, and Das, as it's invested in Torah. that's engarbed in Torah and her commandments. Hanigleis lanu levanenu. That's revealed to us and our children. As I was just explaining, this Torah, this filter, this unbelievable energy that's going to not be overwhelmed by Malchus of Atzilus, that's the Torah we learn. Because Torah comes forth from God's wisdom. Torah actually is God's wisdom. God is actually one with his wisdom, and Torah is one with God, as am I, and you, all of us, as we're now learning this Torah. Now, the Rebbe wants to explain to you, just in case you got confused. So you're like, wait a minute, you're a little confused. You're reading this yourself. Well, you don't have me over-explaining it 5 times first, so you're trying to process. You're like, wait a minute. The infinity of God is in Malchus Vatzilos. And that's the source of creation. And it's too powerful for creation because it will burn up creation because it's the infinity of God. It's the source. It's the sun. You can't directly get energy from the sun. You need the filter of the rays. There are no rays here. The sun is the source. Well, you got a problem. So I need a filter. Got it. The filter has to be much more powerful than the infinity of God as it's invested in Malchus of Atzilus and sovereignty of the world of being, because otherwise it won't be a filter. It will burn up. True. So we're saying the filter is the will and wisdom of God, all levels of wisdom, Ratzon, Chacham, Bin, and Das. The infinity of God is invested in there. God himself is invested in there, as is expressed in Torah mitzvos. So I just need to remind myself, I just need to clarify in my brain, wait, is this powerful enough? Will this withstand the infinity of God as it's invested in Malchus Vatzil? So the Rebbe says, yeah, it's much more powerful. So the Rebbe is reminding us, Hi chachma ila'a de le'ela le'ela me'alma disgalia. This is a supernal wisdom of God way higher, le'ela le'ela, way higher than the level of Malchus of Atzilus. Because Malchus of Atzilus, sovereignty of the world of being, the lowest level of the highest world, is, as we learned and discussed in this chapter, called Alma de Iskalia, the world of revelation. This is when revelation can happen. This is when creation can read this energy. Chachma Vatzilus is not Alma de Iskalia. Chachma Vatzilus is not a world of revelation. The first world of revelation is Malchus Vatzilus. That's, as we're saying, Rashis Hiskalus or Ein Sof. The beginning of the revelation, the beginning of being small enough that a creation can absorb. Everything higher, especially, of course, the will and wisdom, is Alma Discasia, as we've discussed already in this chapter. Worlds of concealment. Why are they called worlds of concealment? Because they're too intense to be read. So if Malchus is the world of revelation, and the will and wisdom is the world of concealment, because it's too high to be read, of course it's way higher. La'ela, the Rebbe says, way higher than Malchus. Malchus is revelation. That's concealment. Way higher. So definitely it can handle the energy of the Ein Sof invested in Malchus Vatzilus and will survive that process. No fear there. And as the Rebbe continues to even more strengthen this point, that we say God is Chachma, he is wisdom, but not with the wisdom that is known, not with a Chachma that we understand. Why? Because Hu v'Chachma so echad. God and his Chachma, his seminal wisdom, are one. Meaning, by us, we human beings possess, hopefully, wisdom. I'm a person. I possess a mind. And in my mind, there's understanding. There's wisdom. So that's how we work. We're a person. We have a faculty of understanding called the brain. And hopefully in that faculty of understanding called the brain, in that processor, there's wisdom. 3 separate aspects, so to speak, that work together. By God, it's one. God is wisdom. God is Chachma, but not as we understand Chachma. Because we understand Chachma as a faculty, as something I possess. No, by God it's not something he possesses. Hu v'Chachma so echad. God and Chachma are one. This idea we discussed in chapter 2 of Tanya. This is foundational to understanding wisdom. Torah, God's wisdom, that's not a dimension, a manifestation. That's him. Hu v'Chachma so echad. God and will and wisdom are one. Torah is will and wisdom. God and Torah are one. And when I, the Jew, learn that Torah, I, Torah, will and wisdom, God. We're all one. Completely. So I'm wondering if this filter of Torah and mitzvahs can be strong enough to handle the infinity of God as it's in Malchus Batzilus. And the Rebbe says, are you for real? Of course. This is the source. Malchus Batzilus, that's the energy of creation. That's amazing. Torah, God's will and wisdom, that's the energy of God. That's not the energy of creation, God in creation. That's the energy of God primordial to creation. Definitely much more powerful, the energy of God, than the energy of God in creation. Definitely can be a filter and not be overwhelmed by the energy. So again, we have the infinity of God invested in Malchus of Atzilus as the power of creation, filtered by Torah as the power of God. And through all these levels, creation can happen. Any questions on any of this?
I think it makes me feel the power of just having, not even understanding all the nuances of that, but just the power of learning Torah, like just touching that. Like it's unbelievable to think what we're tapping into every time we learn.
Exactly.
Right?
You got it. You got it. That's exactly the point. That's exactly how I understand all this. Wow. And then I think, and I get bogged down by life. I'm one with the source. I'm way beyond. Imagine like, it's like a joke of a man, a beggar, that he like climbs up all the stairs to get to a person's house. He knocks on the door, he gets a donation, climbs down all the stairs, climbs up another sets of stairs. Every day he's climbing up and down these stairs to get these handouts. And he says, oh my gosh, when I finally make it, I'm going to be the mayor of this town and I'm going to abolish all stairs. So I will never again have to walk upstairs to ask for money. And it's like, you're missing something. When you are wealthy enough, you're going to be the richest man in town. You're going to be the mayor of town. You can make whatever rules you want. You're not going to be walking up those stairs to beg for money. So it's sort of like the headspace. We get in this headspace of being under. And this is saying, you're not under. You're one with the source. You're beyond. Don't feel under. You're literally, as we learn Torah, the Jew. Torah, which is the will and wisdom of God, which is God, which is the source higher than anything of creation, the filter that allows creation to be. That's where we're holding. Creation can't bog us down, can't limit us, can't stifle us. It can't threaten us. We're the source. We're way beyond.
So,
Mm-hmm.
does this have something to do with, we have the prayer for welcoming the Shabbos, and at the end, we're talking about the oneness. They rest upon her. It takes the place in the Mar of prayer.
You're saying
And
like at the end, that
her oneness.
Kabbalistic paragraph in Aramaic?
Right. And it's like she merges into oneness and is separated from the other side. And all strict judgments are severed from her, and she remains in unity. The holy light and crowns herself with many crowns to the Holy King, and all powers of wrath and all adversaries flee from her and vanish. Does this have something to do with what we're studying in Tanya?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think I could be wrong, but I think you're talking there about the energy of Shabbos herself, that power. I don't know if that's
Right.
referring to the energy of Torah. But again, it would sort of be this expression of that enormous godliness where nothing else could exist, which is what we're saying. So on that level, there will be a connection.
Because when I've read that, I think, wow, what is this really about?
Right. What enormous, powerful words. Absolutely. Absolutely. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I think it's just good to remind ourselves whenever we feel small, we feel small. Not exactly. Not exactly. The world might not get it and think we're small. We don't get it and think we're small. Don't get flustered by the world. we're huge because we're one with God. We're one with Torah. We're one with that which supersedes and is before and is the filter that allows all the energy of creation to flow.
But you know what? When we go to a magnificent place of nature, like I'll never forget, I said Tashlich one time by the ocean in New York.
Wow.
And you just look out and you just see, and you know how long it would take to connect with any place else except Staten Island. And it or seeing Niagara Falls or those kind of things. It it does have an effect and make you feel, wow, Hashem's creations. I am very small, and Hashem's so powerful.
And that's exactly a great point of that. We say, Marabu Masecha Hashem, how wonderful
Right.
are your works, God. And when we look at the ocean or Niagara Falls or a mountain range or a thunderstorm, and we're like, look at that power of nature, look at God's power. It says that we're supposed to understand, it was actually a Kabbalistic thought that we're supposed to think before we daven, before we pray every day, how small we are and how great we can become. And both are true. Meaning, yes, we look at God, we look at creation, we look at God in creation, and even creation, which is so small and finite, it's enough to make us feel quite small. Who are we? And yet, how great we can become. We, through utilizing the gifts of connectivity that God gave us, we can be one with Him. Only through utilizing those gifts. Not because, oh, I'm so great. I'm finite. I'm creation. I'm finite, but God is infinite. Infinite and finite can't connect. But God allows us to connect through His roads. It was actually interesting. I had a conversation tonight with someone, a woman I'm very close to, who moved to a different city and connected there to, I don't know, conservative reform temple she started going to. And, we're talking and whatever. Obviously, she knew I wasn't very happy she was doing that, but whatever. In that city, she felt it was the only, well, it doesn't make a difference, her reasons. She told me today, she said, she said, I just feel it. She said, when I'm in that temple, synagogue, I like the people. They're all nice. They're all warm. They're all welcoming. But she said, I don't feel God. When I go to, came to my synagogue or someone else, the two of us mutually know, that Chabad house, God's there. She said, when I go here to this temple, she said, it's nice people. She said, but I have to be honest, I don't feel God. And I said, yeah, why not? They're very nice people. They are very nice people. But a nice person still can't connect to infinity. Finite and infinity don't meet. The only way we connect is because God graciously comes down to us through Torah and mitzvahs. So we are small and we are huge because within us we have the power of soul. And God has created a bridge between us and Him, Torah and mitzvahs. And when we cling to that rope, when we walk that bridge, tiny me becomes huge because I'm one with Him through the roads that He established, through His Torah and mitzvahs. So you're exactly right, Sarah. It's a synergy of both elements. I need to know how small I am and appreciate God's enormous kindness that He loves me so much He wants to be one with me. And He created ways for that to be possible. Like, how could infinity and finite be one? Because He's allowing it to be. Walk the road, Torah and mitzvahs. Then you and the infinity of God are one. And then you are bigger than the problems and bigger than the world and bigger than the sources of creation. You're one with Torah, which is fueling all this. So we're very small. But God gave us the ability to be beyond huge. One with Him, one with Torah, one with the source. So I agree with Fruma. You might miss a few of the details here or there, But the bottom line is very obvious and very powerful and very practical. Don't get bogged down by world. I'm talking to myself, of course. Don't get bogged down by world. Learn another piece of Torah. You're one with God. You're one with the source. World can't throw you.